In today's episode of Jablam Sports Hockey, we're talking all things contenders and pretenders. Who should be in the playoffs? Who shouldn't be in the playoffs that's currently in? So we're going to touch base about the Canucks' new coaching management, as well as Coyotes. Are they going to have even a team this year? Also, Islanders, is UBS Arena cursed? Hit the music. Welcome to Jablam Sports Hockey. I'm your host, Peter Bojaranov, and the mic is always on. It's your one-stop weekly shop for expert analysis on every single team. We are a fun hockey community, bring everyone together. You can find me on Twitter now at pbojaranov, Bojarinov. V as in Victor, formerly at Russia98. You can find the full show at Jablam Sports. That's Jablam Sports. If you have any questions or comments, please tweet us. Use the hashtag at Jablam Sports. Please subscribe to us if you haven't done so yet, and click on those three dots in your podcasting app. Share our show with 3 hockey fans you know. Thank you, everyone. Remember, check out our website, www.jablamsports.com, for our podcasts and even game notes for each episode. You'll get all the links to everything we mentioned on this show, including guests. We've even got articles this year and much more content weekly. For our podcasts, click on podcasts on our website and then hockey on this show specifically, right on our website. All right, it's time for some Trending Now this week. Joining me for Trending Now is José M. Romero, who covers the Coyotes for AZ Central Sports. You can also get him on Twitter at Romero José M. How's it going, Jose?
Doing good, Peter. Happy to be here, man.
Good, and of course we got Brady Trettenero, and of course on Twitter it is Brady Tret. How's it going, Brady?
I'm doing great. Yeah, exciting times for the Canucks. That's bolstered my mood. So yeah, hope you're doing well. Thanks for having me.
Obviously brought you guys on. We're gonna get to contenders and pretenders for if they can or if they will fall out of a playoff spot. Before we get to that, I brought you guys on to discuss a little bit of this stuff. And number one, before we get to the Canucks, it's Arizona, a little bit tough with the whole arena thing in the city of Glendale. Is there a chance that they might not even have a home soon at all, or is the Coyotes, they're going to get that settled, Jose?
Oh, there's definitely a chance. I mean, you have to first they were able to extend their lease for the rest of it looks like for the rest of the season. They paid those reported unpaid taxes and fees, whatever they needed to pay to the city of Glendale and to the management company that runs the arena. So that was taken care of. Now the city wants to charge them for the rest of the season up front. They want the Coyotes to pay now for the rest of the season so that the Coyotes just don't up and bolt on them mid-season, which I couldn't see happening anyway because they really don't have another deal in place to continue on after their time at Gila River Arena is up, which is scheduled to be at the end of this season. So lots of moving parts, lots of conversations being had about where they're going to play next.
Yeah.
Could it be at Arizona State University's new multi-purpose arena, which holds about 5,000 people? Could it be at a baseball stadium, downtown Phoenix, Chase Field? Could it be somewhere else? Could it be a combination of, a couple of places? So, man, it's just it's a lot right now. This organization is going through a lot. It's nothing new for this organization. There's always some kind of drama, but again, this is a tough one because they have to have a home. And they have to probably close on a deal here pretty soon.
We know how stubborn Gary Bettman can be, and he wants the teams to stay there, and a lot of people that are tight with a team, they want to keep it there. Is there a possibility they could lose the team within a year or two or sooner or later, I mean, and maybe to one of those other cities, Houston or Quebec or something?
I mean, you can't completely rule it out because things have gotten to a point where that's been close before. And then something happened where it kind of pulled it out of the, mess, and they were able to stick around. But man, I tell you, Gary Bettman really wants this team to stay here. He's all in on the Coyotes staying in Arizona. So until we get to the point where that is no longer the case for sure, that's just kind of where it's going to be. I think he seems to have a lot of faith in this ownership group over here. He seems to have faith and a belief in a plan that something's going to get worked out where they're going to play somewhere locally. And you have to take him for that at this point, because there isn't any there's no movement. The Coyotes have said they don't want to move the franchise. So,
man, I hope they stay, because I love enjoying the Coyotes game. I've been there at Gill Arena. The atmosphere is pretty good, and the team and the organization, they're still fun to watch, and they have a good few pieces there. Going to Vancouver, Brady, there's been obviously a lot of changes with Bruce Boudreau in there now, currently, and of course, President of Hockey Ops, Jim Rutherford, is in there now. So far, they can't seem to lose, at least mostly with those shutout wins with Bruce behind the bench. So is it working out right now, or are they just playing with kinks and it's kind of just by luck?
It's working out right now. I think anytime you make a coaching change, it can provide that spark, especially initially. It's about whether or not it's sustainable in the long term. And personally, with this roster, I don't think it is. Like, you're not going to see them winning at this kind of rate. There's going to need to be changes. But I think when you look at the primary reason that they've gone on this 4-0 stretch here under this new head coach, it's the goaltending of Demko. He's just the NHL's top first star of the week for what he did during this 4-game winning streak. But, it's not all the goaltending. I think they are playing better when you look at some of the advanced metrics and stuff through these 4 games. They're just playing better. And I think that's what bringing in a new coach can do, because there was such this negative kind of attitude and atmosphere here with Green. And I'm not saying it was Green's fault for how they were performing, but they just needed to be a change. And Boudreau has brought a new energy. He's trying out new things, new line combinations and stuff. And so far, so good. So I don't think it's going to, sustain this level of winning, but I definitely think it's a positive change.
So you think there could be some moves that could be possible? Is there any big piece, like maybe a Bezer, that could be moved?
I think it's going to depend on how the Canucks are playing at the deadline, because that's where it's really going to get interesting. If they think they can make the playoffs with this team, I don't think you're going to see any blockbuster trades, maybe just some minor things. But if they've really fallen out of the picture, I think you could maybe see a JT Miller go. I personally wouldn't think that's a good idea. Like, Miller's been arguably their best player besides Demko this year. He's been unreal, but you're running into some significant salary cap issues, because Besser is going to need a new deal next year. And they're just not going to be able to pay all their forwards. In a couple of years, you're going to have to pay Horvat as well. So if they really want to improve their blue line, which is the main issue, in my opinion, they're going to eventually have to move one of these forwards or get really creative with the cap. And unfortunately, it's going to, I think, come down to Miller or Besser. And that's tough to say which one of them is going to be on the outs.
All right, so let's get to some fun stuff. I know I'm hitting you guys the hard stuff first. Contenders and pretenders time. Metropolitan Division, we'll start with them. And we see the Islanders look like they're total pretenders. And on your YouTube page, if people are watching right now, you can go to that if you're just listening to the podcast. But we have the standings there so far. Carolina and the Rangers are at the top. Pretenders. Are the Rangers a pretender of this division? Are they going to be in one of those top 3 spots at the end of the resolution of the regular season, Jose?
I would say probably not in the top three. I think that oh, my phone call's coming in.
All right.
My phone call's coming. I am so sorry, you guys.
All right.
Better take this one. So I appreciate the time.
Cool.
So
I'll talk
much.
to you later,
Yeah,
Jose.
thanks, bud.
All good.
All right.
All right. We're losing Jose. He's going to go talk to the GM
Yeah.
of the Coyotes.
No big
now.
deal. No big deal.
No big deal. I'm just not as important as the general manager of the Coyotes. Brady.
Yeah.
So we'll stick with the Metropolitan Division. What do you think's going to happen with that? Are the Rangers a pretender? Because I think they are. I didn't have them in the top 3 spots for sure, and I had them maybe on the bubble, but they're looking good so far.
They're looking good. And, I kind of agree with what Jose was kind of going on about there, about how I don't think they're probably not top 3. But I think they could sneak in. I think they'll probably be right around that bubble, because when you've got a goaltender like Shesterkin, you've got that reliable option in the net that can really win you games. And I think that's huge, especially when you look at some of the goaltending struggles in that division this year. So they've got the offense as well. And that's what I really like about this team. My concerns are about the blue line. So I think they're a bit of a pretender, but I'd put them on the bubble, I think, as my prediction for when we get to the playoffs in April.
And for contenders, is there a team that's out that's looking in? I know Pittsburgh's right now just on the bubble. Columbus is still right there. And Philadelphia and the Islanders have really slipped. Is there one of those teams like a Philadelphia or an Islanders you think might actually still fight back for a chance?
I wouldn't count out the Islanders. I know they've had a miserable season so far, but when you look at the coaching, and I don't think, there are very many coaches in this league that are more reliable than Barry Trotz. So I know it's been tough so far, but I think when you look at their recent seasons, they haven't been a very good regular season team. Like in recent years, they've kind of made that push to the playoffs in the second half of the season is when they've really come on. And when you look at their run last year, they almost didn't even get into the playoffs. So they're a team that I think with that coaching, that defense, it's a very similar roster to the team that made that run last year. I think we're going to see them take some steps forward, and I don't think they're going to sit in the basement of the Metropolitan for the rest of the season.
And if anybody's listening here or on YouTube too, you can go to jablamsports.com and you'll see our contenders and pretenders for every division on there. Mine, as well as Jose's and Brady's, will be on there. So moving on to the Central, Minnesota, Colorado, and Nashville in currently those top 3 spots. St. Louis has dipped in the last little while. Contenders, though, I don't know. I still had, oh my goodness. I had a lot of people, I think, had Chicago on the bubble. Dallas and Winnipeg were maybe in those spots, were surprised maybe by Nashville, maybe even Minnesota so high. Which of the top 3 teams do you think are more pretenders?
I think it would have to be probably like Nashville for me. I just don't think they necessarily have the offense to keep pace with a lot of these teams. I'm also not huge on Minnesota, but I do like them a bit more just because of, they've got Kaprizov and they've got, a really solid goaltending tandem. Nashville does have Saros, which I like, but my concerns are more about whether or not they're going to be able to get the goal scoring to kind of keep pace in that division, because it's kind of Colorado that I think is going to run that division. So I think it's going to be hard really for any team to kind of knock them off when it comes down to the big games.
For myself, I'm going to go with Colorado just because I think everybody expects Colorado to dominate. And Nashville is obviously the easy pick as a pretender. And Minnesota, maybe they're not the team you expect to win the division. But with Colorado, I said even before the season, I still think they're going to be a pretty good team. I think they could figure it out come playoff time. But with the goaltending move and some of the defensemen that they've lost, I was like, do they really put all their marbles in Francouz or even in Kumper? And I think that's kind of where they're struggling a little bit right now. And I don't know if they're going to find a resolution in that. Are they going to be able to pick a goalie up at the trade deadline that will fix or band-aid that? I don't know. So I don't know if they can do that. In terms of contenders, for myself, I had a few of those teams, like I mentioned, and I still think St. Louis and even Winnipeg are a team that will find that spot. I think Nashville is probably going to fall out, and maybe one of those other teams, but I think both of those teams should have a wild card spot or maybe even one of the top 3 playoff spots. Winnipeg is just, there's got too many weapons. They've got Hellebuck in the pipes, and I think they're good to go. They both should be playoff teams. Which one of those two, at least, or another team, do you think should have a playoff spot?
Yeah, Winnipeg, I think, would be my pick there. We saw them play really great early in the year. They've kind of been a little bit up and down, but anytime you've got that forward group with Connor, Wheeler, Scheifele, Ehlers, and especially if, when they're all healthy, I think that's kind of as good as a forward group as you can find. Obviously the Avs will rival that a bit, but then I like some of the additions that they made on the blue line, kind of providing that depth behind some of their top guys like Morrissey and Pionk. And then of course you've got one of the best goalies in Connor Hellebuck. So anytime you get into a playoff series, like you saw against a team that's as good as, say, the Oilers, that's that talented with McDavid, Draisaitl, and you can put out Hellebuck and you've got the offense to keep pace with a team like that, you're looking pretty good. So the Jets would be kind of my team that I think is going to be a contender and get back into a playoff spot.
Again, if you go to our YouTube page, Sublime Sports, if you're watching the video on there, we'll even have the betting odds for some of these teams that we've talked about. It is the third of the season mark. I know a lot of people like looking at the quarter mark or the half mark, and we're nearing that third of the season mark, and you can make some bets right now. If you're looking at the Atlantic, Florida is at the top, Tampa Bay, Toronto right behind. Boston is just on the bubble. Who is a pretender out of these teams so far, Brady?
In the Atlantic?
Yeah.
A pretender. It's hard because I might have to say Boston just because I think there's more upside with the other teams that you've listed, right? I think Boston has a bit of a ceiling. When you look, I think that loss of Krejci hurts them a lot, and I'm not 100% bought in on their blue line and their defense. They're putting a lot of their marbles into a younger guy in goal in Jeremy Swayman, and Linus Ullmark has had his struggles throughout his career. So when you look at Boston, they've really got that one elite line of Marchand, Bergeron, and Pastrnak, quote, the perfection line. Mm-hmm. And my issues are kind of with the depth behind that. Boston is playing well now, but I'd have to put them in the pretender category.
I'm going to go on the limb again and go with Tampa Bay. Can they do it 3 years in a row? Can they win the division? Can they go all the way? When Kucherov comes back, people think, "Oh, it's they're set and they're good." I'm still in the question mark of, do they have the depth? And they've lost a lot of big names. I don't think they're a top team. I think they could probably make the playoffs, but they might be a bubble team. If Boston can turn it around, and I'm edging on that, I feel that Tuukka's not that far away. And if they can get him and they can get even half of Tuukka's possibility, or one of those two goaltenders that they brought in from the Sabres, of course, as well as Swayman, can they just be solid enough for them to, and I think they're fine enough to be a bubble team. But Tampa is my question mark. I think they can maybe keep up that playoff spot, but I don't think they're good enough to be that top contender that they've been in the last 2 years. So I think they're a pretender for sure. For those 4 teams that are out, man, again, this division is a hard one to pick for both the pretenders and contenders. Which one is a possible contender for you?
Out of those 4, I can't say that any of them are a contender, unfortunately. I mean, if I had to choose, I mean, it'd probably be Detroit.
Yep.
Just because they've got some exciting pieces in the rookies and they've got the goaltending. But I kind of see it holding up as status quo the way the teams are positioned right now. That would be my best prediction.
Yeah, for myself, I same thing. That division is so divided. It looks like we have the contenders and it looks like we have the pretenders. If I were to put any money on any of them just to get something out of it, I think it might be Ottawa. I can feel the young team turning it around, and if they get some consistent goaltending, and we've seen them be very streaky. So I think if they can turn things around and those offensive young kids, which we've seen in the past, especially last season, the rest with Brady even getting a hat trick, I can feel that some of those young guys can start clicking again and they can sneak in and get a bubble spot. All right, let's go to the last division, and that's the Canucks as well in the Pacific. Are the Canucks or one of those teams able to turn around and be a contender for you?
Yeah, I think, as I mentioned, the Canucks, it just depends on the ceiling in terms of, a quote contender. But I think the Canucks are my pick because I think the coaching change and such is going to be a huge boost. I think you can already see the confidence within the players. They're showing, I think, more excitement. They're having more fun out there. And I think with the talent, when you've got guys like Pettersson and Besser and Horvat and Hughes and a goalie like Demko, you're among the most talented teams in that division. So they're my pick for, I think, sneaking into a playoff spot or being on that bubble when all is said and done. I don't have too much confidence in any of the other teams that are at the bottom of the Pacific right now. So the Canucks would be my pick.
Yeah, I'm with you on the Canucks. But I'm gonna go and cheat and say Vegas, because they're not in the top 3 spots in the division, and I believe they're a full contender. We know what's coming up.
Oh, yeah.
And Jack Eichel's coming back.
Yeah.
The team is coming back. They're slowly getting healthy again. Robin Lehner's a great goalie. They have all the pieces. They're just not fully there. They've had the injuries. All the guys are coming back. Pacioretty and Mark Stone's back. And even on the back end, they've had some injuries. Peter Angelo, I think he's good to go. And the big solid number 9. Is he number 9? What's the number for Eichel on the Canucks? 9,
I think.
It's 9, right? But yeah, so he'll be back. And from what they're saying so far, he looks like he's going to be even better than before. So if this surgery, which is going to be the next hockey Tommy John surgery, it seems like, man, if he gets even better than he was before, wow, look out for Vegas, and they might have hit the gold mine again and got another piece that could take them over the limit and finally win the damn thing. It's very possible, and that's why I'm putting my marbles as a contender for Vegas, and that's why I'm putting my marbles in right now, and I'm picking Vegas to very possibly win the damn thing, win
the whole thing.
Cup. Yeah. All right, pretenders-wise, to finish up, Calgary, Anaheim, Edmonton. My pick is for pretenders. It is Anaheim. I just don't feel I think we're all baffled by how all these California teams went from all being bad, all being in the basement of league, to all being somewhat decent. The Kings are playing decent. The Sharks are playing decent. Anaheim playing phenomenal. Nobody expected this. Right after this, I'm gonna talk. We're gonna just one little thing about the All-Star game. We're gonna mention February 5th. That's when the All-Star game is. Trevor Zegras. I can't even pronounce his name. I don't know him that well enough to pronounce his name, but he's putting up highlight goals. It's like, oh, you're calling this the Michigan? This is the Svechnikov? No, this is how you do it. He's reinventing the game with his skills on this Ducks team. Man, they're pretenders, but they're not pretenders in the excellent games and action that they're doing right now.
I agree with you. Yeah, Anaheim is my pretender, but it's not necessarily. It has more to do with the other teams in the division. Like you touched on, the Knights are going to be getting Jack Eichel. And I just think Vegas has underperformed this season. They're going to get a lot better. You're already starting to see it. Like they had a wild kind of comeback win that kind of showed what they're capable of recently over Dallas. And once Eichel gets into the fold, that's a scary team. And also the Oilers are slumping now. I don't think they're going to be slumping for that much longer. Any team with McDavid, Draisaitl's got huge upside. I like the Flames a lot. They're just a solid team. They got great goaltending. I like the way they're composed and they're built. And I just like what Sutter has going with that team. So for me, it's just because Anaheim, I think, has overperformed a bit. I think they're just going to regress a little bit and not be at the top when all is said and done. I think they're going to be more a fringe team, a bubble team. And that's mainly to do with the fact that I just don't think they've got these great kind of young players and stuff, but when you go further down their lineup, there's some question marks in the depth areas. And I just like more of the top kind of heavy teams that I pick over them in terms of like Edmonton and Vegas, which do have, especially Vegas has more of that depth that I think you can count on. So I think Anaheim's performed a little bit above what they should be performing at. And I think Anaheim's going to regress. Yeah. So yeah, they're my pretender as well.
Totally. And if you want the bonus content of the All-Star Guide to look out for, go to our YouTube page, Jablam Sports, and you'll get it from me and Brady. That's it for Trending Now. Up next is Team ISO New York Islanders, and we break down what they're struggling with. And is UBS Arena uncursed for the Islanders? Find out next. And of course, you can find them on Twitter at Brady Tret for Brady, and for Jose also. Thank you for joining us at Romero Jose M.
Awesome. Thank you.
Have you ever wanted a one-stop weekly shop for expert analysis on every single NHL team? Look no further than jablamsports.com. We've had guests from James Sabalski, Ardo Cal, and yes, even Dennis Bernstein shows up monthly. We are a fun hockey community bringing everyone together. Find us wherever you get your podcast and type in JABLAM Sports. That's Jablam Sports. Our website is, yes, you've called it, jablamsports.com. Go download and subscribe right now. You can also find us on socials at Jablam Sports on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. I'm Peter Rojanov saying, puck you later. All right, for this week's Team ISO, on the panel are Joe Pantorno, sports editor at AM New York. You can find him on Twitter at Joe Pantorno. How's it going, Joe?
Good. How you doing? Thanks for having me.
I'm doing pretty good. Pumped. I'm not as pumped as you guys are. So let's continue. The intros. Also on the show here is our buddy and pal Andy Graziano. He covers the Islanders, of course, for the New York Islanders Hockey Now. You can find him on Twitter at AndyGraz_19. Andy, why the number 19? Did I ask you this last time? I don't think
you probably did. And it's Stevie Yzerman, baby. Idol. Stevie Yzerman.
Ooh, all right. I grew up with the Russian Five, of course, my background.
Yep.
So I love those guys. When I was growing up, and this is why I wanted to be a sports journalist, and which is why I kind of wanted to do play-by-play. I was doing in my head on the street in my little hockey stick. I'd be like, Fedorov, the Konstantinov, the Kozlov, the Boyarinov, he shoots his goal.
I think we all did that. Yeah. We
Yeah.
all did that. But I was an Islander fan growing up, so to have a huge 18 by 20 frame poster of Steve Yzerman above my bed, my friends all thought was kind of weird, but whatever.
I don't want to throw it out there, but like being a minority or being different than other people, it really helps. And like for me, it made me attached to those Russian hockey players, right?
Yep.
Are you guys both of Italian descent?
How'd you guess?
I wonder how.
Is it our accents, Joe? Did we give it away?
I don't know. It must be.
So no. I asked you this because I connect even furthermore because my grandfather's Russian, but my parents are Serbian. My sister's Serbian. I connect with my boy Milane. I call him Milane. Milan Lucic. Branko Radojevic. Alex Nedeljkovic. I want to buy an Alex Nedeljkovic jersey. But is there a player that you connect with? First for yourself, Joe, is there one?
It probably hasn't been since childhood where I really connected with a player, and for me, it was Zygmunt Palffy. Because my father was an Islanders fan growing up, so I watched a lot of Islanders games. And let's be honest, my first memories with the team were the Fisherman era. So, yeah, we really don't have many good memories surrounding that team or that time in the organization's history. And I think my father's face gets red every time you bring it up. But Palffy was like the lone shining light on those teams. So he was the one hockey player, I guess, as a kid that I would try to emulate.
Yeah, he was fun to watch. Andy?
Yeah, for me, it's like I said, growing up an Islanders fan, it was, of course, the core of Mike Bossy and Brian Trottier. Mike Bossy, who I still consider to be one of arguably the greatest pure goal scorer in the NHL's history. Now, obviously, with this latest generation growing up, it's Ovechkin and Ovechkin only, although I think Austin Matthews is starting to creep up in my mind a little bit in terms of being a natural pure goal scorer. But yeah, for me, it was the Trottier, Bossy, Dennis Potvin era. And then, but like for me, the player that I always identified the most with, like I said, was Yzerman. He was the guy that I always emulated my game after. He was the reason I wore 19 up until I stopped playing men's league when I was like in my late 30s. So it's, and go figure, the guy not only had a great career, but he went on and he's a terrific GM to boot. So is there anything he can't do?
Well, he hasn't. We'll see. The Detroit is where his heart is. Let's see if he can get them the cup, right?
He's got them on the right track.
Yeah,
he's got them on the. I'm not talking cup anytime soon, but he's definitely got them on the right track. He's got a lot of good young players there.
Yeah, Raymond looks good, and of course Sider on the back end. Whoo, that guy looks like a beauty. So
and Raymond was actually drafted that first summer that they brought him in. Yeah, was one of his first decisions was drafting Raymond. So
yeah. You guys didn't even go where I wanted you to go. I wanted to hear an Italian hockey player's name. But
there is none. Who's an Italian hockey player? Andrew Mangiapane?
Yeah, there you go. Why not? There's been a couple. There's
a Sonny Milano from Massapequa.
Sonny Milano, yeah. Good job, Joe. Sonny Milano.
He's really good on the Ducks. Come on. All right. So why I brought you here, guys, and we're gonna get to that in a second. Also, check out our YouTube page. People can take it out at the end. At the end of this podcast, these guys will be guessing who's on the back of my jersey. You'll find out the answer. Hold on for that. You'll find out the answer on the YouTube page in the bonus on there on the video. So we won't say that on the podcast. All right. So in our preview episode, Joe was there. Almost everybody picked the Islanders to win the Metropolitan Division. I remember screwing up that name, right, Joe? Everybody laughed at me. David Alter was like, this guy's weird. I'm like, it's the what division? Oh, I'm doing too many divisions. I'm doing too many segments. I'm like, don't even know what division I'm in right now. So everybody, except for somebody picked Washington, Carolina. I don't know who it was. Maybe it was me. But almost everybody picked the Islanders to win the division. Where are they now? They're at the bottom. Why, Joe? Why are they at the bottom? Why did everybody pick them at the top, and why are they at the bottom?
Well, take your pick. There's certainly been a lot of reasons why the Islanders are where they are right now. I mean, the easy way out is to blame the COVID outbreak, where they basically lost half of their skaters. On top of that, you lose Ryan Pulak and Brock Nelson long term. I think that's what kind of made sort of a slump turn into a nosedive. But in that same respect, I mean, even when most of the roster was together, it just seemed like something was off, something was missing. That attention to detail that has made the Islanders such a force kind of to be reckoned with, especially during springtime, it hasn't been there. And if you just want to say that the players aren't really into it, or they're getting a little bit too far into it and they're holding their sticks a little too tight, and that's why I think we've seen the offense struggle as much as it has. Like I said before, you just gotta kind of take your pick here, because there's a lot of things that are just misfiring right now, and Barry Trotz is sort of trying to hold it together with duct tape, and hopefully he can kind of stabilize sooner rather than later, or else in a couple of weeks we're going to say that this season's already over, and we're already kind of meandering towards that territory right now. But there's still a little bit of time, I would say, just a little bit. I don't want to say the sky's falling yet, because then I would sound a lot like Twitter.
Andy, furthermore, how much of the impact of COVID has really hit them hard?
It's hit them hard for sure, as Joe said. I think that it's you can't underestimate the quality of players that the Islanders had out, and I think that when it's incomparable to the situation that they had in Ottawa, for instance, or even the situation they had in San Jose prior to the Islanders outbreak, in the sense that you're talking about top 6 forwards. You're talking about 4 of their top 6 D all having COVID at the same time. They literally fielded half of an AHL lineup, literally. And I don't think that with regards to the overwhelming feelings on social media, the attachment to the team, and thinking that the NHL has it, quote unquote, out for the Islanders, I don't think that was the case. I think we saw today with the decision that the league made with the situation in Calgary, where they had, 7 positive tests within 24 hours on the brink of traveling across the border to play a game in Chicago. I think the league was always bound to get it wrong before they got it right. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, just like the rest of the world is kind of forced to be reactive instead of proactive during this pandemic. I think the league was unfortunately faced with that same situation. I don't think there was ever a thought that but now we're seeing it spread to other sports, right? We're seeing COVID outbreaks in the NFL. We're seeing COVID outbreaks in the NBA, games canceled. But as Joe said, I think the Islanders, you have to, whatever card you're dealt, you kind of have to deal with them. And the Islanders, it's clear, have not dealt with them. And prior to the COVID outbreak, they had the 13-game road trip. And looking at their road record right now versus their home record, I think the argument that the 13-game road trip hurt them is losing a little steam. And it's just, as Joe said, they're teetering right now. There's a lot of teams, more so than looking at the points. You can say, well, they're only X points back with X games in hand. And that's fine to do that. It makes mathematical sense. But the number of teams they would have to jump is kind of what I look at more, right? Because you're then banking on not only making up those points you need to make up, but the 5 or 6 teams that are ahead of you all plummeting at the same time pretty much. And I think that's what's going to make the climb extremely difficult.
Fans have been waiting forever for this beautiful new arena. It's here. It's great. UBS Arena. They win on the weekend, finally. But they're 0-7 to open up the new building. 1 win, of course, in the last 13 games. But, Joe, is UBS Arena kind of cursed already?
I've been reading conspiracy theories. I've had my tinfoil hat on, where people are saying that it was built on top of a horse graveyard next to the racetrack, so they're cursed in that way. I think that was my personal favorite. No, it's the wins are going to come, and granted, this team had no time in that arena, and it's been a whirlwind of a season, and they'll get their legs under them. I think I don't think that they'll be this bad at home for the long haul, I guess, for the rest of the season, if you'd like to call it that. But I don't really know. I think there was just a lot of extenuating circumstances where you come into that building and it's all right, well, not only are we missing half of our team, and not only are we dealing with a COVID outbreak, and not only are we missing, our 6 best players, now we have this immense pressure of trying to perform and meet expectations at home in a long anticipated opening of a building that Islanders fans have deserved for so long. Mm-hmm. So I think it's just a lot of moving parts. And I think we're starting to see things calm down. I mean, at the end of the day, the Islanders have gotten points in 5 of their last 6. They've won 2 of the last 3. It's baby steps. And again, it's really not the time for baby steps because there's a lot of ground to make up, as we just discussed. But it's a start. And hopefully for them, it's going to become more Fort never lose instead of Fort never win, which, again, I saw that. People are pretty witty. I'll give them
that. He's been injured, and he has yet to win a game. Semyon Varlamov, what's going on with him, Andy? And are we ever going to see the stellar Varlamov that we've seen in the past?
Yeah, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was his knee that was bothering him, right, Joe? Into this new season, it was something with a knee. I think he might have sprained it at the end of last year. Pretty good too, considering that it was still bothering him this long into training camp and then into the new season. But to me, he just doesn't look comfortable. He doesn't look comfortable back there, and I think that Barry Trotz is forced right now to almost go with the hot hand. Right, as Joe said, they're so far behind. You got to start piling up points. And there's really no choice. You don't have the luxury of if the Islanders, if you flip the Islanders record and they were 11-7-5 or better, they're 7-11-5. If you flip that, and I'd say maybe you have a little more of a cushion to kind of work Semyon Varlamov in there and let him kind of feel his game back, get the feel for the game back. But with them being so far behind, you don't have that luxury now. So Trotz is almost backed into a corner of playing his best goaltender, which coming into the season arguably was Ilya Sorokin anyway. But I think Trotz really was depending on this season to have more of that like 55-45 split between the two. He wasn't looking to rely on a pure number one, and I think that's kind of what he's been forced to do. Again, it's a tough situation. The Islanders just all around are in a tough situation. And but Varlamov to me is in one simple word, it would just be uncomfortable. That's all he looks to me is uncomfortable.
All right. Well, you guys are giving me a lot of question marks here. We don't know what the problem is. We don't know which goalie to play. Well, we do know, but we can't play the other one. We don't know if it's the arena. Fans are throwing out hairballs and witty comments and everything all the time. So when is enough, Joe? And it's time to make a trade or fire someone. And who could it be?
Oof.
Wow. Firing is out of the question.
And Andy, you can jump in here too.
No. This is loaded. I want to hear Joe take this one.
Woo, starting to sweat. No, I'm just kidding. I think firing somebody is out of the question. I think that, and again, we've seen this way too much on social media. I think there's a faction of fans out there who already want to change at head coach, which is asinine in my opinion. I think within the coaching staff that goes as well. They've built up way too much good faith over the last 3 years for basically 21 games to disband that. A trade, on the other hand, is something that's a little bit more likely to happen. We haven't really seen Lou Lamoriello go out and make that huge splash. That wasn't prompted by the trade deadline. Yeah. This is more out of complete necessity. This is, okay, we're kind of tipping our hand here, and the league knows that we're desperate. So he's kind of navigating tricky waters here. And we've seen reports that, that they've been linked to a couple of guys, whether it's a Tarasenko or a Jacob Chychrun. The names, I don't know if we'll ever really know them until it's actually done. That's just the way the Lamoriello is. We all know that. We won't find out until it actually happens, or 2 days after it actually happens. So this is going to be an interesting test for Lamoriello, who a lot of people consider that the game has passed him by in terms of roster construction. So There are obviously a few glaring things that need to be addressed and that have had to have been addressed over the last few years that really haven't been filled yet. And the relying on the likes of Kyle Palmieri or Zach Parise or Jean-Gabriel Pageau to pick up that goal scoring slack this year, well, that hasn't really come to fruition yet. So, again, the secret's out. The Islanders need help, and they need help fast. So it's now up to Lamoriello to make sure that he's not the one who gets fleeced here.
And Andy, continuing on that, who's one or two of the players that you think he could be moved? And even out of the guys that Joe mentioned there, is it Chychrun? Is it Tarasenko? Who do you think could be coming in?
Yeah, I don't see Arizona trading Chychrun if they do, unless they're. I mean, there's just no way. I can't. Well, I'm not sure why you would trade him at all, and I would think that if you're going to look to trade him, the price is going to be so astronomical that Lamoriello's just going to hang up immediately. Tarasenko, I know they were linked to over the summer. I haven't heard anybody linked to Tarasenko since the season started. And Vlad has obviously come out healthy and had a pretty good start for St. Louis. I still think St. Louis would look to move him. I know that the hang-up over the summer, not just with the Islanders, but with a couple of teams, was the amount of salary that St. Louis was going to retain in any kind of deal involving him. That was kind of the hang-up there. But again, I think that I'm not so sure if I'm the Islanders right now, unless I really see them get back into it by game, let's say 35. I think their game against Detroit tomorrow night is going to be game 24. I would say by game 35, you have a really good indication on which way the season is going. And that's why I wouldn't kind of rush to make a trade right now for trade's sake. Mm-hmm. I think that this is a roster that, and to Joe's point, I'm one of those that believes that Lou Lamoriello is a terrific, one of the best, if not arguably the best guy to have at the top of your organization. Top down, overseeing hockey operations, running the show, big man in the chair. I'm one of those that doesn't think he should be the GM. I think he should have probably taken the president's job and then hired a GM. That's just my opinion. Because I do think Lou is kind of stuck in that old way of building these older, slower, prodding teams that play really good, tough playoff hockey. But when you think about it, you got to get there first. And the Islanders, with the roster that Lamoriello's constructed in conjunction with Trotz's playbook, it's a team that pretty much has to play playoff hockey for 82 games before getting into the playoffs. Yeah. That's a really, really tough thing to do over that long of a period of time. And I could see some players potentially getting frustrated with that style of play. I think we heard that a little bit in Adam Pelech's comments, Joe, right? After the game that they lost to Nashville, where Adam Pelech literally came out and said, it's difficult playing 2-1 games every single game in the third period. You kind of want to open up the offense. Now, if that's coming from one of your top two defensemen, that's not. And again, everything in context. Nobody knows what Adam really meant because we're not in Adam's head, but that's just how it came out. So we can only judge by how it came out and what he said. And that's what he said. And that's not indicative of everything being kind of hunky dory behind the scenes. I also don't think it's coincidental that a couple of games after Matt Barzal plays 15 minutes against Toronto, when the Islanders had half of an AHL lineup, he's all of a sudden playing 24, 25 minutes. I don't think that's too coincidental either. I think there was a conversation that might have been had there between Barzal and Trotz, in my opinion. So again, I'm not a big fan of making a trade for trade's sake. If by game 35, if they're not looking good and it's looking further and further away, then come the trade deadline, I look to potentially move a Semyon Varlamov. I look to move a Josh Bailey. I look to free up as much cash for what looks to be a very attractive UFA market next summer. Now, granted, we don't know if those guys are going to actually make it to next summer as UFAs, but should they? You're looking at players like Johnny Gaudreau. You're looking at players like Philip Forsberg. You're looking at John Klingberg from Dallas. You're looking at those guys potentially being UFAs next summer.
Plenty more questions, and would they want to come to the island? Well, the arena looks beautiful, but I don't know how wins are going to be happening there. All right, last question. Let's turn it to a bright spot before we go to bonus stuff. And that is, how about Quincy, Massachusetts' favorite son, Alfred Wahlstrom? he keeps developing. He looks pretty good. He's one of the few bright spots on this season. Joe, how do you see him fitting and then playing for the rest of the season, but also furthermore fitting in for the rest of his career? Where do you see him slot in? What type of player?
Yeah, well, he certainly has the intangibles that the Islanders have been starving for in terms of offensive threat and danger. He has one of the most imposing wrist shots that I've at least consistently seen in quite a long time. And again, it's something that the Islanders just haven't had. It's an asset on the power play, obviously, and one day it will be a consistent asset on the first line. The problem is right now is that he's not getting as many minutes. And Barry Trotz tried to clarify why that was happening last week. And long story short, he basically said that playing alongside Matthew Barzal creates so much unpredictability in I guess the relationship between the two that it's not a tangible relationship to rely on within the first line. Mm-hmm. So that's why you see Oliver Wahlstrom playing alongside Zach Parise and JG Pageau more often than not. Which again, I mean, we can sit here and debate about it all day, but that's why you don't see Oliver Wahlstrom on the first line as much as I think a lot of people would like to see him. Because again, on paper, it makes perfect sense, right? You have a playmaker like Barzal just opening up acres of space on the ice, and Oliver Wahlstrom's just going to have all day and all night to shoot the puck. And again, one day that's going to really make for an imposing line, I think, with the trio of Anders Lee, Barzal, and Wahlstrom. It's just that Wahlstrom hasn't necessarily shown the consistency within the two-way system that Barry Trotz likes to see. And that's more coming from him than anything else. So I think as you see Wahlstrom develop more and I don't even want to say he buys into the system more because he's already bought in pretty well. You don't see many sub 22-year-olds playing for a Barry Trotz and Lou Lamoriello team. And I think that says a lot about Oliver Wahlstrom, and it also says a ton about Noah Dobson as well. Granted, it's come out of necessity, but it's also pretty significant that they are trusting these two as much as they are. So the ceiling's high. Things are certainly looking up for Wahlstrom. And I think if you said what the future fit will be, if he's showing this kind of production where I think it was in the month of December, he has the top 3 most points per 60 minutes amongst all NHL forwards. I mean, that's not, that's something to write home about. So again, we all know that the Islanders have something there. It's just how long is it going to take until we truly see it at its full potential?
I can see it by your voice and your tone that you are so excited. You're so excited about his future. You're so excited about this team this season and his future. Yeah.
Joe's a pro. Joe's always guarded with his comments. That's what makes him a pro.
All right. So you'll get more bonus content on the YouTube page. Who's on the back of this jersey as well? What are we going to do with some of those vets? Just check out Sublime Sports on the YouTube page. These are obviously great guests. You can find Andy at AndyGraz_19 and for Joe at Joe Pantorno. Again, thank you, gentlemen, for joining me.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the time.
I want to give a thanks to our guests this week, Brady and Jose, of course, for trending now and talking about those tough situations with those two teams. Of course, Canucks look like they're going to turn around. It's great to see Boudreau in there and getting a role again. And with the Arizona Coyotes, man, that is, again, a rough situation in Arizona. I hope they have a team because I actually enjoy going to games there. Also, Team ISO, we had Andy and Joe. A great conversation about them with the Islanders. And I actually think they're going to turn around. I don't know if they're going to make the playoffs this year, of course. I really don't think they will, but I think they're going to turn around. And yeah, I guess Lou's getting old, and maybe he shouldn't be in that GM spot. Maybe he should move into the president's role and have a new GM step in. And Andy really opened my eyes about that. I also want to give a special thanks out to my team members. If you guys don't know, we have a few more interns joining in the team. And if you do want to intern for Jablam Sports, let me know. Jablam Hockey or jablamsports@gmail.com. You can go to our website, jablamsports.com, and contact us. If you've enjoyed anything you've heard in this episode or don't, please tweet at me or even our guests. You can follow me on Twitter @PBojaranov or the entire team @Jablam Sports. You can use the hashtag Jablam Sports. That's JABLAM Sports. If you want to also contact us on our website, go to jablamsports.com/contact. Also, you can find all our info for all our guests and our podcasts, for even game notes for each episode, including this one. You'll get guests info and links to all the things we mentioned on this show. We even have weekly content articles. Please subscribe, rate, and review us on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, or wherever you get your podcasts, including Spotify. And of course, click on the 3 dots in your podcasting app and share this episode with 3 friends you know. Please and thank you. Jablam Sports Hockey is your one-stop weekly shop for every expert analysis on every single team. We are a fun community bringing everyone together. Follow us on Facebook. Thank you, everyone. And to every one of our listeners, we're giving you a virtual hug. Stay healthy, listen, be yourself, and stay strong.